All right, this is a post-incident analysis of the structure fire at 8595 Cox Road, which occurred on February 22nd, 2025. So the goal of this post-incident analysis is to just inform everyone of what happened at this incident, the structure fire. We're going to discuss and highlight some critical fireground factors as it relates to the incident. We're going to refresh everybody and review the structural firefighting policy, and then present some best practices for when and if you encounter some issues and how best to navigate those. So this is the house at 8595 Cox Road. You can see it's a two-story single-family dwelling. It's a 2,023 square foot, and it's configured as a quad level, built in 1973. And what we mean by a quad level is that we deal with split level homes all the time. So around the town, we have split level homes. Bi-level homes where you go in the front door, you can go up or down. They have living spaces and a sub-level and then a half story above. Tri-levels are built the same way. So you have a ground level entry. You can see by the front door. So that's on the first floor. And then it goes a half story up and then a half story down to the sub-level. With a quad level, it actually has a second sub-level, which is a true basement. So you'll actually go in the front door, you'll go down a few steps, and then it actually goes back down again with a switchback stairwell into a true basement. So that's what the term quad level is. There's truly four floors to this building. It's not true four stories because they're only dealing with half stories above and below. The home was occupied at the time of the fire with normal fire loads and just normal house items. There was no hoarding conditions or anything of note. So when the fire occurred, these were responding units. Everyone was in quarters. So we got our full one alarm complement for a single family structure fire. We also received mutual aid from engine 56, which is noted as well. So going through the PIA, looking at turnout times, everybody was below the 2-minute threshold. So very well done on that. We would expect that being if this fire came out during the day. So daytime hours, we should have pretty quick turnout time versus at night where you have to get up. But everybody was below the 2-minute threshold for policy, so very well done. So this is a similar floor plan to something that you would see in a quad level. This is not what they had at 8595 Cox. But typically you have, when you come in the first floor, which is represented by the far right, you come into the house here, and then you're presented usually with a stairwell up and down. So those stairwells are next to each other, separated by a little bit of a wall. So the stairwell goes up. It's usually 6 or 7 stairs up, and then you have 4 rooms usually. So you'll usually have 3 bedrooms and a bath. Sometimes there's a master bath off of those. That's not always true, but your bigger tri-level homes, sometimes you'll have a master bath off of the master suite. Similarly, you got 6 or 7 steps down, which reveals into like a large open family room. And typically there's like a bathroom or something off of that. And then in this quad level, it goes down to a basement. And usually in those basements, that's where you find like the washer and dryer mechanical systems. The first floor has the kitchen off the Charlie side and a living room that you actually enter into when you go through the front door. So that's the typical configuration for a quad level. This is just showing some of that. If you note, with this, again, this is not the floor plan that they had, but we're dealing with very small rooms. So, it's 2,000 square feet, 3 to 4 bedrooms. The bedrooms are not big. So 11 by 11, 10 by 10, 12 by 10, very typical bedroom sizes, but they're not large. We're not talking grandmaster suites of like 18 by 20 or anything like that. So listen to the 911 call here.
Westchester 911, where's your emergency?
We have a fire.
Okay, what's
8595 Westchester Road. 8595 Cox Road. I'm sorry.
8595 Cox Road, what's on fire?
Yes. I don't know. Just recently.
What do you see flame?
It's in the house.
Okay.
It's
The bedroom?
Yeah,
Are you getting out of the house?
I'm trying.
Okay, what's your name?
What?
Okay, get out of the house.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
So obviously you can hear on the 911 call that it is a reported fire and that they're trying to evacuate.
Westchester 911 wait.
So it highlights that we have a reported fire in the bedroom. There was a second 911 call that also came through from a bystander that was passing by that reported smoke coming from the house. They were attempting to evacuate, and you can hear that beeping as the actual smoke alarms in the background. So would give us a little more credibility that this is a fire. We're going to listen to a little bit of the radio traffic here as we go through.
Single family structure fire. Engine 71, engine 72, engine 74, ladder 75, medic 71, medic 74, medic 75, tower 73, Warren County engine 56 of battalion 70, single family structure fire 8595 Cox Road, 8595 Cox Road, Rockgate, Brookdale Drive, and Neva Drive, ESC 203, all units en route, utilize Fireground 8, 851.
Engine 31, we're responding from 747 Tyler, so.
You're clear responding.
G74, I'll be en route, Fireground 8.
G74, you're clear route.
Ladder 75, route fire.
Ladder 75, you're clear route.
Medic 75 en route.
Medic 75, you're clear route. You're clear route.
Engine 74 responding, Fireground 8.
You're clear responding.
Engine 72 en route, engine key failure.
Engine 72, clear route. Medic 74 en route.
Giant 70 responding. Clear on Fireground 8. If possible, monitor the Fireground for me.
You're clear. Additional information for all units en route to 8595 Cox Road. Called by female subject. Very upset, advising there was a fire in the bedroom. Could provide no further information. Stated they were going to evacuate the home. Could hear the smoke alarm in the background.
G71 en route. Clear on Fireground 8.
G71, you're clear route. Additional information for all units en route to 8595 Cox Road. Received a second call on this. Caller advising they do have smoke showing by a passerby.
72 can see smoke showing from Cox. There, there's smoke showing. Ladder 75, hit a hydrant from the north. We're going to catch one on the south. Fireground 8.
G72, clear route.
Ladder 75, here.
You're clear, 2-story, fire coming from exterior.
Engine 72 on scene doing a 360, residents outside. No occupants, heavy smoke showing from Cox Road side. We're pulling a hand line to the front door.
You're clear, team.
Command all units 360 complete. We do have basement with basement windows. Only sign of fire is smoke coming from split level bedroom on second floor.
You're clear, team.
Ladder 75 on scene, we'll take search. Ladder 75. 7 count, tight, 7, I'm going to be 47% on count. 141.
You're clear, they are en route.
I have command established on exterior. Ladder 75 is advancing with engine 72 back stepper through the front door. Engine 56, we're on scene. We're going to be laying in from Brookdale, Fireside Court. Brookdale, no reports of patients. Established high rig on Alpha side. Okay, so the on scene.
You're clear on scene with command.
Don't trust on that line, are we? You are advancing engine 3/4 to the front door, 75 giving certain form. This is correct. I'm going to take it down the side. That's correct. You have command on Alpha side. G73 is out of the fire. Deerfield Chief 259 on level 1.
G73, clear route.
Chief 259, I'm going to give you the
Question,
You're going to have 75, engine 72, and 75 available. And I can't tell what number they are.
Engine 75 available.
They're on 75, 72. You'll be engine 56. Come in from engine 56, just confirming you want to set up high risk. Engine 56, you're gonna have a second line in. You're gonna have a second line in. I'm going to come. I'll keep your engine if you can. Fire deck, and get on to the bedroom, check the hypertension. Okay. Engine 72, I understand you have water on the fire. 7 pounds, man, I got water on the fire. Ladder 75 is on the, with engine 72 back step for next second on the second floor.
Do you have clear water on the fire, Student 100?
Man, medic 71, that's one. Pure field medic, anyone clear on unit? Okay, it's level 1. Jack 56, I'm gonna give you the alpha H. Zach, we're ready for water on the green line. Sending out command. Place fires out. River fan, front north. Engine 71 on scene.
Engine 71, you current seat.
2259 to come in. I'm now in place at Alpha. 674. Engine 71 on scene, level 1.
You're current seat.
74, you're gonna be rehab. 74 cleared. And Alpha. Go ahead, sir. Ladder 75 was requesting a band of front door. You want that? Sir, I'm gonna work on it here with them. G74 on level 1. 7 count command.
Command, go ahead.
Can you try to get a fire investigator for me? Marshal 73.
You're clear.
74 is level 1. G74 is on force.
You're current seat.
Also, command, 7 count, also, electric.
You're clear.
7 count, G71 on scene.
C71, you current seat.
Engine 74 on scene.
Engine 74 on seat.
Command, engine 71. Good, my on deck. Alpha. Command, G71 is level 1. Engine 71, clear on deck, Alpha. G71, come to car. Clear, G71, command 8. G74, you can get on the Charlie side for me. 94 clear, Charlie. Ladder 75 from Alpha. Guys, 70 miles. You got the fan here in place. Are you ready for it? Thank you, fire now. Can you repeat? You're good to start the man. Stuffing trees on.
You're clear. 7 comms, 270.
Thanks, sir.
Make contact with Marshal 70. He's requesting a phone call from you.
That's fine. 72, man. 72, we got Alpha in place, go ahead. Alpha, you can start the fan. You're first, start the fan.
All right. So looking at the active 911 map, this is the house here. So we have a hydrant here, a hydrant to the north, and another one across the street. So we got 3 hydrants nearby. So if you look at our critical fireground factors for this, again, looking at blue card and just incident command structure, there are a list of basic items that we have to consider when evaluating tactical situations. There's 8 basic categories for these, and that's the building, fire, occupancy, life hazard, arrangement, resources, action, and special circumstances. So these are all the 8 basic factors, and these obviously break down to about 1 million subcategories, but these are the 8 basic categories that we look at as incident commanders when evaluating strategic and tactical decision making. So if we look at our critical fireground factors for this, we had a working fire on the 2nd floor of a split level. So we know that the building is a single family occupancy. It's a type 5 dwelling, so it's wood frame construction. The occupants are reported out by dispatch and also from the on-scene report. So our life hazard does drop significantly. However, just because that people say they're out, that doesn't always ring true. So again, if we hearken back to the Astor Park incident, we were told that not only were all the occupants out, that the house nobody was home, and that the car was not there. And then obviously we see the result of that, having 4 victims brought out in rapid succession. Similarly, if you watch the Close Before You Doze video put out by Fairfax County, Virginia, highlighting the need to sleep behind closed bedrooms, it was a national video that was put out. The occupant, who was a 14-year-old or 15-year-old boy, said, "Hey, nobody else is inside." And as the crew's advancing and knocking down a kitchen fire, they hear coughing and cries for help and found out that his sister was actually trapped inside. So reports that everyone's out is sometimes uncredible. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't take that report and, not do something with it. It's just not always gospel. We had a vent limited fire. This fire was actually more kind of towards the decay stage, really. We had smoke showing, no actual fire presenting. So we had a vent limited fire. There were adequate resources responding based on our task analysis and what we need to cover for a one alarm event. And there were no arrangement issues or what we would consider exposure. So there was nothing really close to it. We were worried about auto exposure or anything like that. There was a house, a bi-level to the Charlie side, probably about 100 feet away. And then obviously you saw the lot presentation there for how things are arranged. So when we evaluate our critical fireground factors, that gets us into a risk management plan, and it's either green, yellow, or red. So in this case, we would say that, we risk a lot to save a lot, risk a little to save a little, or risk nothing to save what's already lost. Risk management plans can get subjective and debate, but based on our critical fireground factors, we can make an educated decision here, right? So the fact that it's a type 5 dwelling, it's a vent limited fire, the fire is isolated in one room, we have adequate resources, we got good water supplies, we have everything kind of working in our favor, we would say that this is a green, right? This is a low risk situation for us. It's reasonable to believe that it could still be occupied. It's reasonable to believe that the fire's in the growth stage, and that if we get a good knock on it, we can make a really positive outcome here. So that puts us in the green, which drives our strategy, which makes us into the offensive strategy. And then we go into our incident action plan of what do we need to do, which drives our tactical priorities and our SOPs. So our incident action plan basically is always kind of the same. It's life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. So when we're looking at life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation, that drives our SOPs. And so if we look at our SOPs and how the fireground playbook is laid out, our first engine, remember, is fire attack. Our second truck on scene is search. Third truck on scene is backup line. Fourth truck on scene takes RIT. And then our fifth truck starts going on deck for ancillary duties. So our conditions on scene was light smoke showing from the second floor, reported as fire showing initially, but when the 360 was completed, there was actually just light smoke coming from one window on the second floor. So this fire did not extend. There was no smoke from the eaves. It was light smoke showing from the second floor. As the crews were approaching, the smoke was actually banked down and white due to cold temperatures. The temperatures this day was very, very cold. It was like 18 to 20 degrees. And so when the fire actually burped and that hot smoke exhausted out of the bedroom, it hit that cold ambient air and dropped the smoke to the ground. What that caused was kind of a weird read on the building, because the smoke was blowing across Cox Road. It was hard to tell which house was actually affected just because of the way the wind shifted and the way the smoke banked down. That caused some poor apparatus positioning, which we'll talk about here in just a minute, but the reason for the apparatus position was specifically due to the wind and the weather and what the smoke did. So actions, there was an on-scene report given and command established. So the 360 was completed. Engine 72 stretched a hand line to the side alpha for fire attack. They took an 1 3/4 smoothbore, and they laid in a water supply from the south. They also radioed to bring a second water from the north. That radio traffic was missed by ladder 75, and that water supply did not happen. However, there was a second water supply established from engine 56 on Brookdale. So we had 2 water supplies established. So our needs initially from engine 72 was second water, which again was established by engine 56 early in the incident. Search, a backup line RIC, the ICS build out, so Alpha, Charlie, Alpha Aid, Charlie Aid, all of just the division components needed for a working incident. Salvage and overhaul operations, on deck companies, and investigations. So these are all the things that are needed at this structure fire early on. So how we start tackling these is assigning resources and companies and tactical positions and key tactical positions to start working out these problems. So this is kind of a rough estimate of where the vehicles were positioned. Engine 72 pulled a little bit forward on the house, and again, that was because it was hard to tell as the smoke emptied onto Cox Road. It was difficult for the crews to tell if it was actually this house or this house, which one of these two were actually on fire. It ended up being the reported address, which was right here. But again, understandably so, that sometimes reports in addresses are wrong. We've had multiple after-action reviews that show that. So that forced engine 72 to kind of stop abruptly, and they actually positioned more towards the center of the house, which blocked out ladder 75. Had they been able to stop short and maybe even position their vehicle a little bit sideways, aiming their nose more towards the northeast, ladder 75 could have come in and been able to stick the building a little bit easier than what they had to do. That being said, we obviously understand that this is a two-story single-family dwelling, so if there was a need for vertical vent or if there was a need for aerial operations there, they could have gotten this with ground ladders also. So engine 72, once they got on scene, they completed a 360, and they also interviewed the occupant, who advised that the bedroom was actually on fire. So the 911 call and the occupant on scene, or the responsible party, both reported the same thing. And then based on the read of the building, with smoke coming from the one bedroom window, it was very obvious that this fire was on the Alpha side, second floor. Once the 360 was completed, the engine 72 officer came around and saw ladder 75 moving up for search. And at that point, the engine 72 officer peeked in the front door on the Alpha side and evaluated the interior conditions. Based on discussions with him, the interior conditions had light laminar smoke. There was nothing pressurized. There was very little heat. That smoke layer was coming out of that second floor, and it was about 2/3 of the way up the door-ish. And at that point, he also peeked the interior conditions and saw kind of the interior living arrangements, and believed that it was going to be difficult to advance the engine 3/4 with just two people. So he made the decision to combine companies to help move the line more efficiently. Now, again, the problem with that is there was no hoarding conditions, there was no severe clutter or anything like that. But that was the decision that was made there after the 360 was completed, and peaking the interior conditions was, hey, we're going to combine companies to help get the line in place faster. So the incident commander ordered ladder 75 to advance with the engine 72 nozzle firefighter for a fire attack. And then engine 56 was ordered to IRIG. So Battalion 70 arrives shortly thereafter and then starts a command transfer. Because of the radio traffic, there was incorrect information relayed. So Battalion 70 believed that engine 72 was advancing on the fire and ladder 75 was searching. That information was informed that, yes, that is correct. However, that was incorrect information, and it was later corrected by the engine 72 officer after the fire was knocked down. Command was assumed by Battalion 70. So basically, we had crews operating in different positions than the incident commander knew, which kind of throws out our strategic accountability model. So what we learned from this incident, right? So the decision to deviate into combined crews is what threw this incident into a little bit of chaos and a little bit of confusion. Now, at the end of the day, yes, the fire went out, and the fire went out very quickly before even engine 71 or the additional companies were able to arrive in level 1 stage. The downside with that is that these deviations that occurred on this fire, while allowed and while justified to some degree, throws everything into disarray. So we want, as the administrative staff, as chief officers, as the fire chief, we want people to deviate when necessary. So it's acceptable when it's justified. So the crews married together due to an assumed difficult stretch on a 2-story single-family dwelling. Again, that caused this unnecessary confusion and complexity into the incident. The entire stretch probably only took 30 to 40 feet of hose. It was only a couple of turns. There was a chairlift that was attached to the wall going to the upper floor, but there was nothing severely in the way or nothing that couldn't been overcome by firefighters. Again, they also had good visibility on the first floor to see exactly what they were going to have. Remember that when we're advancing lines, right, we can only advance as far as our back step or our officer gives us hose. So you can preload a room and then advance, right? And we can cover that position with the nozzle firefighter that if there was heavy fire conditions, the nozzle firefighter just simply flows water from a stationary position until hose gets pushed into an area and then preloaded, and then we can advance. That is the way that it works in engine company operations. That's the way we've been trained to do it with two-person engine company operations. They are moving simply 1.75 inches, about 30 or 40 feet to an upper floor on the alpha side. So this is not a difficult stretch. Conditions have to, tactics and conditions all marry together, right? So conditions will dictate your tactics. And so if you have hoarding conditions, if you have heavy fire conditions, if you have multiple victims presenting, then obviously deviations have to be made. And as good fire officers and good free-thinking fire officers, we want deviations to make sense. However, when deviations don't make sense or when deviations throw unnecessary confusion and complexity into the incident, then they simply are just not justified. So if we look at the size up, and this is directly off the radio traffic, they're on scene with a working fire. Correction, this is probably how the size up should have sounded. So if you listen back to the radio traffic, the size up was a little bit chaotic, but this is how a blue card size up would work. So engine 72 is on the scene with a working fire in a 2-story split level single family dwelling. Engine 72 has a water supply, stretch 1.75 inch attack line to the front door for fire attack. Will be in the offensive strategy, establishing Cox Road command. Engine 72 gets off the truck, they complete their 360, and this is what the follow-up report likely should have sounded like. All companies from command with a follow-up report. 360 complete, basement present with lookout windows. Fire appears to be on the second floor alpha side. There's no obvious safety concerns. We're continuing the offensive strategy and accountability will be at engine 72. These two radio reports are based on our blue card training through multiple sets and reps and basically the blue card script. So you can accomplish all of these tasks with this fire and give all this information out very quickly, very succinctly, and again, just be able to advise what's going on. So if you do have problems with the hose stretch, because we don't do an exterior command, the incident commander, the initial incident commander being the company officer, goes with the nozzle firefighter, right? That's again taught in blue card, that's taught in our sets and reps, that's taught in our training. So we do not do this exterior command thing. You're in the mobile command mode for an offensive strategy, meaning you have to stick with your nozzle firefighter. In the mobile command mode, we understand that there's a lot going on. That's why the command transfer process has to happen quickly. But you're also in the best position to evaluate the interior conditions, evaluate what your next needs are going to be. You have accountability of your firefighter, and you can make a positive impact on the incident quickly. So in the mobile command mode, there's a lot going on, but the incident can quickly be stabilized by your actions. So option A is to begin the stretch in the mobile command mode. Again, your nozzle firefighter can only advance given the amount of hose given by the officer. So if the officer gives you 10 feet, you can move 10 feet. If the officer preloads a room with 30 feet, you can move 30 feet. So we want to preload rooms, you can move furniture out of the way, turns in areas, and advance on the fire. With this particular fire, again, it was not hot. There was no pressurized high velocity smoke. There was no fire presenting. There was actually even no bilaminar flow. So as far as the flow path was concerned, fresh air was coming in the front door and then going out the window. So it was actually going away from the crew. So that was a very good condition for this offensive fire attack. Based on that, you can move stuff out of the way, you can get hose in and then advance on the fire. But that's a lot going on for that mobile incident commander, and understandably so, but that's what we train for. Option B is that if you have a difficult stretch, like if you're getting bogged down, it is getting difficult, then we can utilize the surge crew to help move a line a few feet. So as ladder 75 would have come in for search, engine 72 is a little bit stalled. Hey, I just need a few more feet. Hey, get that coupling in here. They can easily pick that hose up, move it in. It would take about 5 to 10 seconds, and then ladder 75 could continue the search. The search is a priority because not only do we search for life, that being our number one thing, but also for fire. So the search crew is a great avenue to check for fire extension. Obviously, the engine's going to the bedroom, but that search crew can also bounce off those other rooms. They can check the floor below. They can check the rest of that building because they're moving light and fast to determine, hey, there's actually fire below you. There's actually fire in the ceiling. There's actually fire in this other room. Now, none of those conditions were present here, but that is why we have a search crew advancing. It's not because of just victims. It's life, fire, and layout. That's what the search crew does. So the search crew continue, but they can assist in bringing that line in the building. Once that line's positioned, search crew bounces off and continues with their assignment. So we have resources coming in that even if the stretch is difficult or even if the stretch is bogged down, there are resources there to help advance the line. There's no need here to really marry two crews together. A third option is if the stretch is stalled completely, right, and the search crew's gone, right, there's off searching now, we can call out on the radio and request a company to marry or assist in the advance. So the command transfer has already occurred. Hey, we're having difficulty. Hey, we're facing a lot of conditions. I need another company to help move the line. So the officer stays in mobile command, but now you're actually radioing that company to come in because that stretch is stalled. So these are three different options that could have been taken here that would have alleviated that confusion. So mobile versus fixed command with our incident command policy. So offensive strategies require mobile command. So that is what's, again, taught in all of our training with Blue Card, taught with our sets and reps. That's what's trained to our standard. So if you're in the offensive strategy, you're in mobile command. You can make the most positive impact on the fire ground. There is no outside command in Blue Card nor in our ICS policy. So the outside command is when we do a command transfer to the strategic level IC, who is Battalion 70 or another chief officer. Within our policy, we have three ICS strategies: nothing showing mode, mobile command, and strategic command. So in the nothing showing mode, we do that every day on fire alarms. We go with our crew to investigate, we stage our apparatus and figure out what we need. In the mobile command mode, you still go with your crew. You manage tasks and command simultaneously. Strategic command is going to be used when you're overwhelmed by tasks. So as the initial company officer showing up, you're going to have to take a strategic command presence. The reason you would do that, like a hazmat incident, multiple victims where you can't, if you have 5 victims present and only 1 crew, you're probably going to take more of a strategic command role and try to do the best you can. Reasons like that. So it's when you're overwhelmed by tasks, you don't have enough personnel or resources to make an impact. You probably need to step back and start taking a strategic level view to figure out where you need to start putting resources. So those are our ICS strategies within our policy. So this is directly out of the policy. It talks about the mobile command mode again. The mobile command mode is for situations that require immediate action to stabilize the incident and requires the company officer's involvement with the tasks. In these situations, the company officer goes with the company to provide the appropriate level of supervision and assistance. These situations include, but are not limited to, offensive fire attack, where the officer's involvement will resolve the incident problems or markedly reduce the problems. The immediacy and or size of the problem will dictate the first in officer's decisions. So again, in this case, we had a very small room and contents fire. The officer could have made a better impact by doing this. Now, again, the fire did go out. The fire did go out quickly, but with a little bit of confusion here. So the example that's given in the policy is a room and contents fire, an officer, pump operator, and 1 firefighter, where the firefighter needs the officer's assistance to advance the hose line to knock down the fire. Where fast intervention is critical, the company officer will maintain command by portable radio until one of the following occurs: the situation stabilized, or it doesn't stabilize and you got to back out and establish an exterior command, or you pass command to a higher ranking officer. So again, the mobile command mode clearly delineates when to use those situations, why to use those situations, and how to use those situations. Again, we've been through Blue Card and incident command training. So command is established by the first in company officer, just as it was on this incident. It is transferred in an orderly communication process to the strategic level IC, and then the crews then start reporting to a division supervisor if one's assigned. So Chief 259 arrived, he became Alpha, Battalion 70 is command, Battalion 70 called for that incident command transfer and stated, hey, I believe that this is what I have going on, and it was acknowledged, yep, that's all correct. The problem is none of that was correct because the communication cycle there was missed. So some of the positives of this incident, there was a quick knockdown of the fire. There was no further extension of the fire. The fire damage was limited, and it honestly went very, very well. There was very limited of damage, and we had enough resources to handle. There was nothing delayed. We didn't have multiple calls going off at the same time, which would be a reason to deviate. If your run card is going to be significantly delayed because we have other incidents going on within the township, obviously we have to deviate. If we had multiple victims present, obviously we got to deviate. If I had heavy fire conditions where, hey, I don't think one line's going to cut it, I might need 2 lines on this before we can advance, we're going to need to deviate. But for this incident, we had a very simple room and contents fire on the 2nd floor. So some improvements to make. So we need to maintain crew continuity. We're not going to marry crews on single-family offensive structure fires of this nature. We will deviate when necessary. Again, heavy fire conditions, lack of resources, multiple victims, or when you feel it is appropriate to deviate. But on room and contents fires such as this would be an inappropriate deviation of policy. Maneuvering a hand line in a house is not often a difficult task. When the interior conditions were peaked, yes, there might be stuff in the way, but that's not going to make maneuvering the hand line difficult. Again, when you have good visibility, we have non-hostile fire conditions, you can get that line preloaded in advance. You can also use the search crew to help advance, and then they can bounce off and keep their task. We're not going to assign a search crew to fire attack. So from Chief Hannafin, positioning matters, and we talked about Engine 72's positioning being a little forward and why. You can stretch hose, but you can't stretch ladders, meaning that when we blocked out ladder 75, they're blocked out and they're kind of useless at that point. So stop short. We can use our apartment load. We can use our pre-connect. There wasn't a long setback with this house, so the pre-connect reached just fine. So we need to leave the front of a residential building open for ladder apparatus. Andy Fredericks talks about, and Alan Brunacini did before they passed, that's so goes the first line, so goes the incident. And Brunacini even talks about command presence and how essentially your command presence on the scene and what you see sets the tone for the incident from the get-go. So be calm and be confident. When they talk about the company officer, which is a group out of South Carolina, you have to be the calmest one on the rig. The company officer sets the tone. Emergencies are chaotic enough. So if we're not calm, if we're not engaged, if we're not thinking clearly, if we're not following our policies, if we're not falling back on our training, then chaos is going to occur. Decisions made by the first officer affects every company. So again, if they say everyone's out, that's great, but that's confirmed by us. That's why we have search crews going in. Again, when we talk about Astor Park, when we talk about other incidents around the country that occur weekly, where people are stated everybody's out, and then all of a sudden we find victims, that matters. So offensive strategies require primary and secondary searches, and in this case was significantly delayed because of the marrying of companies. Ladder 75 officer was forced to search adjacent areas while the crew was knocking down the fire, so he was able to bump off the line, but again, primaries did not occur until later in the incident when they could have been established as an all-clear benchmark before. The only thing that we can do to save lives is to get these people out of a hostile fire event and out of smoke-filled structures, and then rapid administration of a cyano kit. But we can't get to them if we're going to delay a search. Good job by BC Mainwaring getting the incident back on track. So once it was realized that, hey, what he had from the command transfer was not correct, he was able to kind of reorient and get all the information back together and then get accountability back on track. And again, we want people to deviate from policy because conditions have to dictate tactics. However, it's encouraged when your actions support the strategic initiatives of life safety, incident stabilization, and property conservation. In this case, the risk management and the decisions made here were not quite in line with what we want to see. And so we want everyone to understand that deviations are okay. However, when they make sense or when they're justified. In this case, it really wasn't. It was a poor decision made initially that kind of led to some chaos and confusion. Now, that being said, the decisions that were made were based on the factors at the scene, and those decisions can only be made by the initial incident commander. So this is known as the burden of command, that you're going to make a decision and you got to live with that decision. That's going to set everything up. If it's a good decision, do you get a lot of praise for that? If it's a bad decision, then you have to go with that. Our goal is to learn from this incident, to understand strategic decision making and rapid decision making, that, hey, maybe this wasn't the best decision that could have happened. There are better options that exist, but hindsight is always 20/20. So the decisions made in the moment were made based on the information that was presented. It's easy to second guess and easy to armchair quarterback after we have all the factors and facts. So understand that the decisions that were made were the decisions that were made on scene with the information that was relevant. Showing the different options that are there. So number one, just sticking with stretching by yourself. Two, having the search crew move 10 feet of line and then bounce off. Or option three is actually calling out for another crew if you're truly stalled. We're not going to marry crews on the front yard before we even know if we're going to be stalled or not. So that was the decision making that kind of threw everything off. Again, the fire was contained and limited to the room of origin. The fire went out very, very quickly before other crews could get there. But at the end of the day, we want everyone to understand that this was the factors of this incident. These were why these decisions were made. These decisions were based on relevant facts and information that was presented. However, now you can see there might be some better options out there, and we hope that you got some education and training out of it. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.